The streets of Warsaw were awash in white and red, the colors of Poland's national flag, as tens of thousands of people took part in the annual Independence March, marking 107 years since Poland regained its sovereignty in 1918. The day was cold but electric, filled with chants, music, and the sound of patriotic songs echoing between the buildings. Organizers claimed that up to 250,000 people attended, while the city authorities put the figure closer to 100,000. Independent estimates landed somewhere in between. The crowd stretched from the Roman Dmowski roundabout to the banks of the Vistula River, a sea of flags, banners, and flares. What began more than a decade ago as a small nationalist gathering has, over the years, become one of Europe's largest annual demonstrations, and one of its most controversial. This year's march carried even greater political weight. Among the crowd was newly elected right-wing President Karol Nawrocki, who took office in August. His attendance marked a shift from his conservative predecessor, Andrzej Duda, who for years had avoided the event due to its association with far-right organizations. Nawrocki, smiling and waving the Polish flag, posted images of himself greeting participants and walking alongside ordinary citizens. To his supporters, his presence symbolized patriotism and continuity, a president unafraid to celebrate national pride on the streets. But for many within Poland's liberal government, his participation raised eyebrows. They chose to stay away, organizing alternative celebrations that emphasized unity over ideology. Earlier that morning, before the march began, Nawrocki delivered a speech during the official state ceremony. Standing beneath the national emblem, he warned against what he described as foreign influence over Polish politics. Some Polish politicians are ready to give up our freedom, independence, and sovereignty, piece by piece, to foreign institutions, he declared. A statement widely interpreted as a critique of the current pro-European government, led by Prime Minister Donald Tusk. Nawrocki vowed never to let Poland become a parrot, passively repeating what comes from the West. His words echoed through state media, resonating with nationalist groups but drawing criticism from centrists and liberals who accused him of deepening political divides on a day meant for unity. Meanwhile, in Gdańsk, a city symbolically tied to Poland's democratic rebirth and the birthplace of the Solidarity movement, Prime Minister Donald Tusk attended a separate Independence Day parade. His message was markedly different. "No one has a monopoly on patriotism," he told the crowd. "Diversity is and can be a source of our strength in the future." Tusk's remarks underscored his government's attempt to reclaim national identity from the far right, emphasizing inclusivity, pluralism, and respect for democratic institutions. He later posted photos from the Gdańsk event, describing the atmosphere as unity and joy. The contrast between Gdańsk's colorful parade and Warsaw's fiery march encapsulated the two faces of modern Poland, one rooted in civic nationalism and European integration, the other in cultural traditionalism and sovereignty-centered pride. The Independence March itself began at midday from the Roman Dmowski roundabout, named after the early 20th century nationalist who helped shape Poland's rebirth after World War I. From there, tens of thousands moved through Warsaw's main avenues, waving flags, chanting slogans, and lighting red flares despite warnings from local authorities that pyrotechnics were banned. Banners fluttered in the cold wind, some reading "Stop Immigration, Time for Deportation" and "Poland for the Poles, Europe for the Europeans." Members of All Polish Youth, Młodzież Wszechpolska, one of the event's founding far-right groups, burned an EU flag in protest of what they see as Brussels' overreach into Polish affairs. On a platform ahead of the crowd, Krzysztof Bosak, leader of the far-right national movement Ruch Narodowy and Deputy Speaker of Parliament, delivered a speech that blended patriotism with populism.
"We will not allow our lands to be settled by foreign nations without a fight," he said. "It is Poles who should decide who we accept and who we stop at the borders." His remarks drew cheers from the crowd, but were met with silence from mainstream politicians who chose not to engage directly.
For years, the Independence March has been both a point of pride and controversy. To supporters, it's an expression of national sovereignty, a day when ordinary citizens, veterans, and young patriots come together to celebrate independence outside the confines of political correctness. They argue that labeling the event as extremist is unfair, given that many participants are families, students, and veterans who simply want to express love for their country. To critics, however, the march represents the growing normalization of nationalist rhetoric in Polish public life. The imagery, Roman candles, militaristic chants, and anti-immigration slogans mirrors trends seen across Europe, from France to Hungary. In previous years, the march has ended in clashes with police and reports of vandalism, though this year's event remained largely peaceful. Warsaw city officials praised the calm, but reminded the public that illegal fireworks and flares would still be investigated. Poland's Independence Day, celebrated each November 11, marks the restoration of sovereignty in 1918 after more than a century of partitions under Russia, Prussia, and Austria. For most Poles, it is a day of remembrance, pride, and national reflection. But in recent years, the day has increasingly become a battleground for political symbolism. The ruling coalition, led by Donald Tusk, which spans from center-right to left, sees patriotism as compatible with European values, civic participation, and social openness. In contrast, conservative and nationalist groups emphasize Poland's Catholic heritage, its distinct cultural identity, and its right to reject outside pressure from Brussels or Berlin. The tension between these two visions of Poland, one outward-looking, the other self-defensive, runs through the heart of the country's politics. And on Independence Day, those differences are on full display. President Nawrocki's attendance this year may further shift the march's reputation from fringe to mainstream. His presence, alongside other right-wing figures such as Jarosław Kaczynski, leader of the opposition Law and Justice (PiS) party, signaled a new phase in the event's evolution. Once viewed as the domain of nationalist youth groups, the march now attracts a broad spectrum of conservative voices. For PiS, the march offers a chance to reconnect with its patriotic base after losing power in 2023. For Nawrocki, it was a demonstration of independence from the liberal government. Yet, this expanding appeal also risks deepening Poland's polarization. Members of Tusk's coalition accused Nawrocki of politicizing a day meant for unity, while his supporters argued that he was simply defending national values. The march may have been peaceful this year, but the competing narratives surrounding it show how divided Poland's political landscape remains. As dusk fell over Warsaw and the march dispersed near the National Stadium, the smell of smoke from flares lingered in the air. Volunteers cleared trash, police reopened streets, and ordinary residents returned to their routines. For a brief moment, calm returned to the capital, but the debates sparked by the march were far from over. In the days that followed, television studios, newspapers, and social media platforms were flooded with competing interpretations. Was the Independence March a celebration of patriotism or a showcase of nationalism? Was it a peaceful assertion of identity or a political provocation? The truth, as often in Poland's complex democracy, lies somewhere in between. What is clear is that the Independence March has become more than just a parade. It's a mirror of a nation negotiating its past and future, torn between tradition and modernity, sovereignty and solidarity. As Poland looks ahead, the question remains whether Independence Day can once again become a unifying event.
one where the white and red flags represent not division, but shared history and hope.